morning to you, Radhika. Good morning to everybody on this call, and good afternoon in case you're in the East Coast. So good living practices are practices that keep the body, mind, and emotions functioning as one unit in order to experience optimal health, as Radhika mentioned. In the last 9 sessions, we actually saw various tools or tips by which we can keep the body, mind, and emotions functioning as one unit in order to experience optimal health. So let me start sharing the slides, and we'll recapitulate what we discussed so far in the last 9 sessions, and then we'll talk in details about today's topic. I hope you can see the slides.
Yes.
So in the last 9 sessions, I spoke about the importance of mindfulness when it comes to cooking and eating your food, all right, in order to achieve optimal health. We also saw the need and the importance and the benefits of physical exercise, and also brain strengthening or brain training exercises in order to improve immunity, because immunity is not just about physical immunity. When we talk about immunity, we are talking at all 3 levels: emotional, mental, and physical. And then I also discussed the importance of selfless service or seva or karma yoga in order to bring harmony and improve immunity both at the level of the mind and the body, that is emotions, mind, and the body. We also discussed about bringing in harmonious impressions through our 5 senses. These are the 5 portals or 5 gateways through which we draw impressions. And it is these impressions that make us do what we do on a day-to-day basis. So we want to make sure that we draw in healthy or harmonious impressions through the sense of sound, touch, sight, taste, and smell. And then I also discussed the importance of fasting, why fasting is important, and how it brings harmony to the emotions, body, and mind. And we also talked about the importance of Ekadashi fasting. And in the last session, we explored the consequences of having an elevated blood sugar. And one of our members here in this GLP thing, Mr. Chandraji, actually provided us some fantastic details about his journey and how he managed to bring down these blood sugar levels naturally. And he did talk about addressing some of the things through the good living practices tools that I mentioned in the book. So today's topic will be on sleep and the importance of sleep. All right. So sleep, according to Ayurveda, and now modern medicine also recognizes that, according to Ayurveda, sleep is actually one of the 4 important pillars of life that endows the body with strength, with complexion and healthy growth, and that can continue until the full span of your life, provided that you do not indulge in any activities that are detrimental to sleep and to health. Now, according to Ayurveda and yoga, happiness, misery, nourishment, weakness, strength, virility, sterility, knowledge, ignorance, life and death, all these are highly influenced by the quality and the quantity of sleep. So each of us needs to look back and see, are we having a proper, good quality sleep, or are we having sleep issues? It's a very important thing that we need to address. Proper sleep is essential for the well-being of an individual and to build immunity at all 3 levels: body, mind, and emotions. The body utilizes the sleep time to do a number of things. That's the time when all kinds of cellular damages are actually repaired during the sleep time. Sleep also helps to thrive on a healthy immune system. It also balances our appetite and regulates the level of all the hormones that play a role in the hunger response and the satiety response. When we are sleep deprived, you're likely to feel the need to either eat more, which can lead to weight issues. A good night's sleep enhances the same positive feelings and states of the mind that you achieve through either yoga practice or you achieve that through meditation. So the same kind of feeling happens if you have a good quality sleep. Good quality sleep also plays a direct role in how full we feel, how energetic we are, and how successful our lives can be. So there's no question that we feel better after a good night rest. So if you want to live your full life potential, we must approach sleep as though it is a personal practice for our own selves. There's an important study called the Harvard Women Health Study. Okay, in Harvard Women's Health Study, they looked at 6 reasons in order to have good quality sleep. And what they said is the following. They said, sleep helps the brain to sustain and preserve new information. So anytime you learn new information, that new information gets sustained only when you have a proper sleep. So long-term memory and short-term memories are all consolidated only when you have a good quality sleep. People who have a good sleep also do much better on learning and obtaining new information, as well as memory issues as well. Sleep deprivation triggers weight issues. So something for people to watch out, especially if you think that you're gaining umpteen amount of weight, and if you're having a hard time losing weight, you have to look back and see not just your diet, but also look at your sleep practices. Sleep also contributes to accidents, falls, and traffic mishaps. Sleep deprivation triggers emotional problems as well. And for those people who have a chronic issue of hypertension and irregular heart issues or irregular heartbeats, look back at your sleep quality and sleep quantity. And for people who say, why am I suffering? Why the other person not suffering? Why am I having these allergies, or why am I having these infections, or why am I having this fever and all kinds of issues? Please look at your own sleep patterns, because sleep deprivation lowers the immunity of an individual at their level of body, mind, and emotions. And this lowering of the immunity makes you susceptible to all kinds of degenerative diseases and infections. Now, how sleep is beneficial and how it improves the immunity is of great interest to sleep researchers. Now, scientists have discovered that during sleep, the brain actually clears out harmful toxins. So just remember now, we have this garbage truck that comes in to collect the garbage once in a week, right? In the same manner, when you are sleeping and when you have a good quality sleep, that's the time that the brain uses that period of time to clear out all harmful toxins that have accumulated in the body and in the brain as well. So during a good quality sleep, what happens is there's a dramatic increase in the flow of a fluid called the cerebrospinal fluid. This is a fluid that is present in the brain and the spinal cord. And this fluid actually drains away. It acts like a garbage truck. It drains away all the toxins from the brain and from the body. And this may be the reason why it is very hard to think or to even do your job the next day morning if you have experienced a sleepless night, okay? Because the garbage truck has not been able to remove the toxins. And that's the reason why prolonged lack of sleep is actually highly damaging to health. In several studies, researchers have also shown that good sleep is also an antidote to fear and other emotional issues. So if you are experiencing any emotional problems or emotional issues, okay, look back at your sleep patterns. The brain also tries to avoid storing all kinds of irrelevant information that we take in every day through the 5 senses. So any kind of bad, unpleasant, sad, negative events, the brain doesn't like it, doesn't like to keep it. It likes to throw it away. So the brain's memory centers do not want to store these negative thoughts and experiences, okay? So for example, now let's say you have had lunch and the lunch got delayed. So you ordered lunch and the lunch got delayed. Or let's say you disappointed your friends by missing an important appointment, okay? All these are what we call unnecessary brain noise, okay? And you don't need to preserve that information. So when does that information get discarded? Only when you have proper sleep. And if you have improper sleep, all this information which is not needed gets accumulated, and that's what we don't want in our brains. So when we sleep soundly, the brain discards all this unnecessary information. We call it trimming of the neuronal experiences. Okay, that's what we call in our neuroscience circles. So good quality sleep actually activates this trimming or this pruning machinery, and it forms newer branches of the neurons in order to receive newer information. And now sleep deprivation or sleep disturbance is a major source of chronic stress. just a mere 1 hour or a 1 week of unrest or poor sleep can cause severe mood disturbances, depression, and emotional issues. Now, the problem is, it's so interesting. We are actually a world of unhealthy sleepers. Statistical studies on insomnia and poor quality actually confirm this observation throughout the world. Between 40 to 60% of people over the age of 55 plus suffer from some kind of a sleep issues. And women are most likely to suffer than men, twice as more likely to suffer than men. Now, the question is, it's not benefiting you. If you are having an improper sleep, it's not benefiting you in any way. Okay, it's not benefiting your family. It's not benefiting the society because you're unable to work. Who is it benefiting? It's benefiting all the commercial operators, whether it is Starbucks that gives you a big latte saying that the latte will keep you awake, or it could benefit the sleep aid industry. Just imagine, through our practices and through our bad living practices, we have created an entire industry that survives on us not being able to sleep well. So whether it is sleep aids, whether it is drugs, whether it is sleep devices, whether it is beds, whether it is pillows, whether it is mattresses. I mean, these days, if you see all these industries are thriving, they say, oh, this kind of an automatic mattress that provides you warmth, that provides you water, that provides you sufficient pillows, comfortable pillows, it'll achieve good sleep. Is that the reason why you're having bad sleep or good sleep? So there's quite a price to pay if you're experiencing sleep problems. The risk for chronic health problems, how you think, how you react, how you work, how you learn, all these are dependent on your quality and quantity of sleep. Okay, so you have to look back and see if you are having any health issues. If you're having any kind of health issues, look back and see what time you're going to sleep, what time, how many hours of sleep quality do you have, okay? And then how do you feel the next morning? The first thing that I tell my people, the people who come to me for consultation, I tell them, when you wake up in the next day morning, can you recall back some of the events that happened yesterday or the previous day or a week before? And can you think about what you want to do today, what you want to achieve today? If you can do that very cleverly and without any disturbances or without any interventions in your mind, that means you have had a good sleep. The question is, let's say you are having a bad sleep and you have chronic sleep issues. What are the natural interventions? I mean, in addition to having a good 3-layered soft mattress and pillows and a warm bed and all that stuff, okay, you spent a huge amount of money and still you're not experiencing good quality sleep. So the question is, what are the natural interventions? Well, go back to all my sessions that we talked about, the session that Radhika and I did, the last 10 sessions. Everything that I've put in there is very helpful in giving you good sleep. So try to limit highly processed foods, fast foods, ready to eat, cold foods, foods that you have purchased from the freezer and you're eating them, or deep fried foods or stale foods. Especially you don't want to eat them in the night, as they can make it very difficult to get good quality sleep. The reason being that most of these foods that are ready to go, ready to eat, they have added preservatives in that. Okay, so that shelf life is improved. Those preservatives can trigger more activity in the brain, which means that you're going to be more awake and you will have poor sleep patterns. Acidic foods, highly fermented foods, spicy, too many spices in your foods, especially meat-based foods. All these meat-based foods, high caffeine content, high sugar content, alcohol, all these are what we call natural boosters of the brain activity. And so they all suppress your sleep. So they should be avoided, especially in the night. And if you have chronic sleep issues, you have to cut down on the amount of beverage that you take, okay, especially in the night, those fermented beverages or those sodas. Avoid these foods and beverages to achieve a good sleep. Avoid eating your dinner in a loud and noisy environment, especially in the nights, because this can stimulate mental activities, especially not having any serious debates, not having any work-related discussions, because all this can stimulate your brain and can produce poor quality sleep. Chewing the food very well, and I'm going to talk about that next month again. At least 25 to 30 chews for every morsel of food before it enters the stomach is a good way to enhance good quality sleep. Keeping a 3-hour gap between dinner and sleep is very, very important, my friends. So here's the thing. Ayurveda, I'll say, when you look back at Charaka Samhita and the Ayurveda text, they say that you have to sleep 3 hours after sunset. See, those days, they didn't have a clock. They didn't have a watch, right? So they looked at the sun's pattern and they said 3 hours after the sun sets, you have to eat, you have to go to sleep. That's number one. Number two, they also said that eat your dinner during sunset, which is very interesting. What it means is that if you happen to eat your dinner during sunset, okay, naturally after 3 hours, you're going to sleep. And that's what modern medicine tells you. Modern medicine tells you that you have to have a 3-hour gap between the time that you eat and between the time that you sleep. Okay, so which means that sleep, and the reason this is very important is because in our body, actually in our brains, for every activity that we do, there is a clock. Yeah, it's called the cellular clock. Okay, and these clocks, they trigger that particular activity. So whether it is hunger, whether it is appetite, whether it is activity, whether it is sleep, these clocks get triggered. So when usually modern medicine has shown that the average time that the sleep clock gets activated is around 9 to 10 p.m. And this is perfect. I mean, it goes very well with Ayurveda because that 3 hours after sunset. So 3 hours after sunset, the sleep clock gets activated, and you naturally you tend to fall asleep. Okay. So now what happens if you override that time? If you override that time, you are going against that clock. Okay. 1 day is fine. So because let's say now you're traveling to India and you're going to take the flight, so naturally that gets disturbed. That's the reason why you experience jet lags. But do that on a day-to-day basis, and that's when you are circumventing the biological clock, sleep clock. Okay, and that's the reason why you start suffering from health issues. So 3 hours between dinner and the sleep, and then to ensure that you have to have your dinner by 6:30 or 7 in the evening, so you can naturally go to sleep by 10. Okay. Some people, even with all this, they may have some issues. So then I would suggest doing a 30 minutes meditation, silent meditation. Okay, not doing too much of activity. Just 1 hour before sleep can also ensure good quality sleep. The more you give your mind and emotions a break, the better you will have sleep. Okay. And then the other thing is developing a sleeping routine. So which means that even if you don't fall asleep, even if you don't fall sleepy, the best is to train the brain. So go to sleep naturally at around 10 every day. And then what happens is within 3 or 4 days, the brain shifts its clock and says, okay, this is the time that the guy wants to sleep. Okay, so let me now adjust it. So sleep routines, maintaining the sleep routines is very important. So go to bed and wake up at the same time each day, and you can reset the clock. Okay. Physical exercise is one of the best sleep remedies. Okay. But you don't want to do a physical exercise before going to sleep. My suggestion is the best thing is try to have so the physical activity clock becomes active between 3 and 4 in the afternoon. So that's the best time to take a physical activity. If at all you want to do a physical activity, the best thing I would suggest is after dinner, go for a very short but a gentle walk on a flat surface. No climbing up the hill and no coming down. You should not be panting for breath. So it should be a gentle walk 1 hour before sleep. That also works wonders. Light is a very great stimulant and suppress sleep, because what happens is whenever you have a lot of light in the room, it prevents the synthesis of melatonin. Melatonin is a sleep-inducing hormone, and melatonin levels fall immediately when the light comes on. So you want to make sure that the light is switched off. So one thing you can do is switch off all the lights in the bedroom, especially before you go to sleep, 1 hour before you go to sleep. Okay, that will trigger this release of melatonin. The other thing that I like to suggest people is not before sleep, but after dinner, you can have a warm cup of organic fresh milk with almond milk or natural milk. So if you're a vegan, then almond milk. If you're not having issues with dairy, you can have organic cow's milk, and then add to it a pinch of nutmeg powder that will calm the nervous system. if you're not into dairy, non-dairy, if you're not into dairy or non-dairy, then the other thing you can do is you can sip chamomile tea, valerian tea, or any mint tea, okay, without sugar. And that's a very good counteractive. It'll promote sleep. A light to soft music. I like to play gentle mantras because that will also induce sleep. The other thing you could do is you can take any oil. If you have a herbal oil, basically either jasmine oil or mint oil that provides the same aroma, you can massage your temples, you can massage your eyes, you can massage the soles of your feet, okay? And that will actually induce a good sleep response, okay? So you can check my book for additional tips. And it's interesting because look at what Mahatma Gandhi said in one of his speeches. He said, each night when I go to sleep, I die, which means that that's the kind of sleep he has. And the next morning when I wake up, I'm reborn, which means that he's very fresh. So I think that's what we need. We all need to cultivate. So we should be able to have a good quality sleep. And now that I told you, you know how beneficial it is. And if you have any health issues, look back and check the quality of your sleep and then try to bring back your sleep cycle back to normal. All right. So let me stop sharing here and I'll take your questions.
So thank you very much, Ram. That is really an important aspect of anyone's life that you have covered today. One of the things that I have heard from people, when you're recommending, like, sleeping at 10 o'clock and everything, and many people say, oh, I'm a night person. I catch up on my sleep during the day. I like to stay up, and that's when I rejuvenate and, catch up on my whatever I need to. What would you say to such people?
Right. So it's not natural for a human being. It's not natural to be sleeping. To be waking up and doing all activities in the night, because human beings as such, if you look at human beings, the physiology of human beings, we are not tuned to working in the nights. Our brains and our clock cycle of sleep starts around 10 in the midnight and goes on till a period of 8 to 9 hours, which is from 10 in the night. Actually, it starts off around 9 in the night and goes on till 6 in the morning. That's the time when we have to sleep. It's a natural response. All right. It's like saying, okay, I'm going to stop my breath because I don't like to breathe. Okay. The same thing happens with sleep. Unlike in breath, because you're going to gasp and you're going to die, you cannot hold your breath. And sleep, you can do that. So that's the reason why people get off by saying, okay, I'm a night person. But truly, it's not. You're not geared with that response, okay? Because the sleep cycle starts off in the night. So for people who have issues and who say that you're a night person, if you are in your 20s and 30s, it's okay because your body's resistance helps you. But remember one thing, you may be experiencing good health around that time, but around 30, 35, especially now I'm seeing even youngsters. I see a lot of people in the Silicon Valley, they come to me for consultancy. And these are all young students, people who are in their early 30s and early 35s and 40s, who should not be suffering from any health issues, but they come to me very often for health issues. And the first thing I get to know from them is that they are working in the night, which is, that's the reason why you suffered. So when you, instead of comparing yourself to another person and saying, why am I suffering, or why am I having allergies, or why am I having gut issues, look back at your sleep patterns and see if your sleep is perfect. You have to have 8 to 9 hours of perfect sleep. And the other thing is, Radhika, I didn't mention this, but there is what we call a concept called sleep debt. Okay, so the sleep debt is something like a bank. If you overdraw, what happens is the bank will now start taking interest from you. In the same way, in our bodies as well, a sleep debt is a debt where if you sleep beyond the clock cycle, say beyond 11 p.m., okay, and you do that on a daily basis, you are incurring a sleep debt of 1 to 2 hours, depending on when you go to sleep. And then that sleep debt, unlike a bank, they can coerce and they can get the money from you. Unlike that, in the case of our sleep patterns, the sleep debt is very hard to come back to neutralize. Okay, and the sleep researchers have done some studies, and what they have shown is, if you have a 4 hour of sleep debt, it takes 1 week to build your sleep patterns to overcome that debt. So now imagine if you're working for months together at improper timings, you have accumulated so much of sleep debt, and that sleep debt Once it crosses the threshold, that's when you start having all health issues. So I mean, then the question is, then what about the night shift workers? The night shift workers, unfortunately, because they have to work that way, what happens is the body tries to adjust itself. But again, these are the people who will come in their 40s or 50s with all kinds of issues. It's been happening. We have seen that trend. It may not show immediately, but over time, it's going to create a lot of chronic issues.
Right. The other thing that I have observed, and is at the time when you're going to sleep, the thing that I practice is I like to read. I like to read, and it kind of calms me down. And in fact, it is jokingly referred to in my family as the sleeping pill, because I usually sleep with the book on my chest, because so they have to take it and put it away on the nightstand, my family. So it is, but it definitely has. And one thing that I have tried to practice is I don't like to watch any shows or any movies or anything that is stimulating
Right.
at time of the night. Like, for example, any Netflix or anything like that. It is, and I try to maintain that during, whether it is during the week or on the weekends. So
Right.
that is something that it works for me, and I just wanted to share about it. And like you mentioned, mantras. If many times I get up in the middle of the night, and I find it difficult to go back to sleep. And at that time, either I read or I just close my eyes and just chant some mantras or something. And I find that calms me down. It
Right.
takes time. It takes time. I'm not
Right.
saying it happens immediately.
Right.
It takes time, but that is something that I have heard you say it in the past, and so that is something that we can practice.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Let me, I think there is one question from, who is it? From Sriram. Can you elaborate on quantity versus quality?
Yeah.
Is the quality second step improvement over quantity?
No, both have to be improved. So when I say quantity, so as human beings, sleep researchers have shown, and this has been proved, I mean, even Ayurveda talks about that, it has been now proven by evidence-based studies. As human beings, we need to have quantity of sleep is 7 to 8 hours. Okay. Now, when we talk about quantity, so it's 7 to 8 hours minimum. All right. Now, you can have 9 to 10 hours of sleep, but that is only for certain people who are having health issues and things. But for generally, if you're not having any health issues, 7 to 8 hours of sleep is the best sleep in terms of quantity. Quality, there is no point in saying I slept for 7 hours, but if each hour you go out, you woke up and went back to sleep. Okay, so there is two kinds of sleep, and it's beautiful the way they are described, and it goes very well with what Ayurveda has been saying. So when you talk about quality of sleep, the thing you have to ask yourself is, are you having an uninterrupted sleep? Okay, it's a different matter if you have to get up to go to the bathroom. But the question is, after you come back from the bathroom, let's say in the middle of the night, are you able to go back to sleep immediately, or do you have to keep turning and tossing and all, and then you don't sleep at all? So if you are having an uninterrupted sleep, that's a good quality sleep. Now, if you're having an interrupted sleep, within interrupted sleep, there's two kinds of sleep. One is what we call interrupted sleep, wherein every half an hour or every 1 hour you wake up, and then you have a hard time going back, and then you sleep, and again you wake up. That's an interrupted sleep. After that, there's another kind of sleep called abbreviated sleep. Abbreviated sleep is where you have only 3 to 4 hours of sleep, but it's a very good quality sleep. It's without any interruption, but it's a very short span. Okay, and a lot of old people who are in their 80s and 90s, they have abbreviated sleep. They can sleep anywhere from 10 to 2, and then after that they cannot sleep at all. But the 10 to 2 is a good quality sleep. Okay, now the question is, which one is better, abbreviated sleep or interrupted sleep? Well, both are bad in a way, because one is a short duration. Okay, it's a good quality sleep, but it's of a short duration. The other one is totally there's no sleep at all, because every 1 hour you're getting up. So both are bad, but between the two, if you look at what sleep research is, when they carried out evidence-based studies, between the two groups, the abbreviated sleep people were the ones who had less amount of chronic diseases, because that 3 hours or 4 hours of window of good quality sleep was sufficient to ward off any kind of issues, okay, compared to the ones where you have uninterrupted sleep. So interrupted sleep is not all a good idea. If you have interrupted sleep where you have a hard time, say even a smallest of the noise can wake you up and then you have a hard time going back to sleep, my friends, that is not all a good sleep, okay? So then you have to bring in all kinds of interventions in order to make sure that you have a good quality, uninterrupted, at least 4 to 5 of good sleep. And then I see there's another question that says, do you have suggestions for people with sleep problems like sleep apnea? Yeah, I mean, the same thing. All the intervention that I spoke about is good, not just for people with sleep quantity or sleep quality, it's also good for sleep apnea as well. Okay, so the other thing that you can do for people with sleep apnea, so what happens is sleep apnea is a condition where people, for a moment, they lose their breath. It's as if they've stopped breathing. Okay, which is not good, especially if it's prolonged. Then it can have a big problem with the brain, because the brain cannot stay without having even a slightest amount of, I mean, it needs a continuous source of oxygen, and that can happen only if you breathe constantly. Sleep apnea can have a lot of drastic effects on the brain function, structure and function. So if you have sleep apnea, then you have to go back and look at what exactly is causing the apnea. Is there a problem with the nasopharyngeal lining? Is there issues with that? Is the structure and function of that nasal lining proper? Okay, so you have to go back and check with an ENT doctor. If everything is fine and still you have the sleep apnea, then there are other issues that you can think about. You know, I have mentioned my book about intranasal administration of medicated oil. There are certain oils that you can drop into the nose just before go to sleep. That's a very good way of making sure that you don't have issues while sleeping. Sleep apnea is one of them. All right. And there's a question that says, when do one need to stop drinking water in order not to wake up to use the bathroom? So, you know, it's interesting because on one hand, people, when they have chronic sleep issues, they stop drinking water because they don't want to get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. Okay, but at the same time, you don't want to dry up yourself. Okay, fluid is required. The kidneys, all the dinner that you have eaten, the only way that the kidneys can do a good job, the colon, the intestine, and the kidneys can do a good job is only when you have sufficient amount of water. So, you know, again, it's like what Chandraji was talking about, continuous glucose monitor. Here, in this case, it's not continuous glucose monitor, it's monitoring your urine output, okay? So the best way is, I know from my physiology, I know that if I take 4 glasses of water after dinner, then I have to get up in the middle of the night. So now what I've done is, instead of completely staying away from drinking water, I take only 2 glasses of water after dinner. That 2 glasses of water is sufficient for me not to get up in the middle of the night. At the same time, the next morning when I go to the bathroom, I know that I have peed. I mean, when I pee, I know that I have enough fluid in the body to digest the food. So work it out that way. See how many glasses of water, because each person is different. Believe me, I cannot give you exact number. Okay, so work it out for yourself. One couple of nights, see what happens when you drink 3 glasses of water, 2 glasses of water, 1 glass of water. I would say don't deprive yourself of water. That is a need, especially if you have eaten your dinner, you need to have at least 1 glass of water. Okay. And drinking milk before bed, please ensure that I wouldn't suggest going to bed with a glass of milk. Try to have your milk after your dinner. So say 30 minutes or 50 minutes after dinner, have a glass of milk. That way you can keep that 3-hour of fasting window between your dinner and sleep. Okay. And plus the other thing is, if you're using some natural sleep aid like nutmeg takes a long time to initiate the sleep response. Okay, so any of this for that matter, even mint and all this, they take a little longer time. So having it after dinner gives you a 2-hour to 3-hour window, and by which time the nutmeg and all these sleep inducing drugs can act very well.
One question I have, Ram, is I've read some articles and everything where they suggest these power naps, in the afternoon. What is your thought on that?
So what they call siesta after fiesta, right? It's very, so here's the thing, those same the sleep study that they did, where they talked about abbreviated sleep and uninterrupted sleep, they also had a third group of participants in that sleep study, where they had people with who had the habit of sleeping after noon. Okay, so here's an interesting thing. especially for people who are not working, who are, like I said, the retired people and all that, they like to sleep in the afternoon because they don't have much to do. And the problem is because they sleep in the afternoon, they tend to have sleep issues in the night. So for such people, it's always recommended that you don't sleep in the afternoon, because then that way you'll have good sleep in the night. Okay. So then the question is, what is at the same time, you want to make sure that after having especially a heavy lunch, or after having had a heavy food in the afternoon, naturally you tend to feel drowsy. So the best suggestion is, instead of sleeping flat, what sleep researchers do is they say don't sleep flat on the bed. Instead, you sleep on the chair or sleep on a reclined chair, so that your body still it's not flat on the floor. So that way, what's happening is you're giving enough time, enough rest for yourself, for your brain, as well as you're not preventing the digestion to happen, because you're not sleeping flat. You're sleeping in a reclined position. Okay, because what happens is, when you sleep flat, you're going to impinge on the digestive abilities. Okay, so you don't want to do that. At the same time, you're feeling very drowsy. So even just remember one thing. Okay, afternoon sleep, the sleep clock doesn't work that way. It doesn't get activated in the afternoons, but it does get activated a little bit because of the food that you eat. So, but it doesn't call for a good long sleep pattern. Instead, what you can do is take a short nap of 5 to 10 minutes. A lot of people do in the same sleep study, they showed that people who take a 5 to 10 minutes nap, which is very sufficient. It's more than sufficient to ward off the distress that you feel after lunch. But it's at the same time is invigorating enough so that you can do your work related activities after taking a nap. So a short nap is enough, but make sure that it is not exceeding beyond 15 minutes. 5 to 10 minutes sufficient, and make sure that you're not sleeping flat. You're just sleeping in a reclined position. So yes, this is perfect, because both in Ayurveda as well as modern medicine have suggested those kind of paradigms.
So anyone else has any other questions? You please feel free to ask before I go into other questions that we have from the email. Okay. So Ram, we have received a couple of, yeah, I have one from Vijaya, how to relieve congestion.
I'm not sure what congestion of the nose, congestion of the chest, congestion of the heart, or the nose in the morning. Okay, yeah. So, that's a very interesting phenomenon. A lot of people, so, in Ayurveda, we call that kapha issue, so which is like people who have a lot of issues with mucus accumulation. And it can be, again, at so many levels. You have to look back and see your breathing patterns during the daytime, during the nighttime, as well as the following day. Okay, because if your breathing patterns are normal during the daytime, then you won't be accumulating so much of mucus when you sleep. So you have to revisit at the level of your lungs. You have to revisit at the level of what you're doing to make sure that your lungs are active. Okay, so because if you have a good physical activity in the daytime, and if you are breathing normally, then you shouldn't have so much of accumulation of mucus in the nose, and you shouldn't have chest congestion. So a couple of suggestions that I would suggest that I have is making sure that you have enough physical activity during the daytime. Okay, that's number one. Number two is pranayama practices, breathing practices, extremely good. That will help in relieving the nasal congestion. You don't have to go into specific pranayama practices. The best would be what we call the alternate nostril. Anulom Vilom is very good. 3 rounds of Anulom Vilom on a day-to-day basis is very good. The other thing that you can also do is practice, if you are not into pranayama, the other thing you can do is just close your nostrils and hold your breath for about 15 to 30 seconds, and do that for a continuous round of at least 9 to 10 rounds. So you're holding your breath and then you're releasing it, holding your breath, releasing it. And then you're holding your breath. See if you can hold it for at least 15 to 30 seconds. Okay, I know it's a lot. By the way, 30 seconds is a lot. Not many people can hold it for that long a period. So work gradually, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and so on. Okay, it's not exactly a pranayama practice, but it helps to open up the airways, what we call the airways in the lungs. Okay, it helps to build up that. Plus, what you do is when you're holding your breath and you're releasing it, you're bringing up heat in the body, and that heat actually melts up all the mucus in the lung areas and in the airways. So things like that you can do. And nighttime before you go to bed, try to do the nasal application of the oil. It is very good. I have noticed a lot of people benefiting from that. They don't complain of the accumulation of mucus in the nose in the morning when they do the nasal application. And that nasal application of medicated oil not only helps in relieving the congestion, it also helps in inducing sleep. So some of these things can be done on a regular basis.
Yeah. So Vijaya, we will be talking about your question on the allergies is a good segue for us to, to the next question we have. But before that, she has the question, can pranayama be done before going to bed?
No, we don't normally recommend pranayama before going to bed. The reason being that a lot of the pranayama practices are a little heating up. It can trigger excitement in the brain. It can trigger all kinds of emotions in the brain. So you don't want to, even though it's calming, but still the very practice itself can be a little active. It's an excessive activity to the brain. If you wish to do pranayama, the best thing would be a gentle anulom vilom. Yes, you can do that. I would suggest about 30 minutes or 1 hour prior to going to bed. It's a very good one. Alternate nostril is very good. It's very gentle. It does not excite the brain. It does not excite the neurons. It doesn't fire up the neurons. At the same time, it's very good for the airways. So 1 hour before bed, alternate nostril is a good practice, but not any other forms of pranayama.
So, Vijaya's question, any remedies for early morning allergies after waking up? We have that same question in the email. The allergy season is fast approaching. Add to that the overall stress levels. Can you provide some preventive tips to build resistance? So remedies and building resistance.
Yeah, so we talked about that. I mean, if you go back and, in my slides, I've given the YouTube link. So look back at all the past 9 sessions that we talked about, where I talked about, if anything, please remember, when you are eating, you are what you eat. Okay, so please remember that, what you're eating. Okay, you are when you're eating. So make sure that you're eating at the appropriate time. Because remember, there is just as a sleep clock, I talked about that in the first or the second session of the GLP sessions. There is a digestive clock, and that clock operates with the rising sun and with the setting sun. So you have to eat at the right time. Okay, so you are what you eat, when you eat, where you eat is also very important. So where you eat, so are you eating in a disturbed, noisy environment, because that can agitate the mind as well. Okay, and then when you eat, how you eat. So how are you eating? What is the frame of your mind? What is the frame of your overall quality of your body, mind, and emotion when you're eating? So all these have to be taken into consideration, especially if you're having sleep issues, especially if you're having health issues. All these can improve your allergies. Please remember, I mean, it's easy to take in the inhaler, but that's not a solution, because that's every time the allergy season begins, you're going to need the inhaler. So the question is, what are you doing at the root level? At the root level is where you address your diet, make sure that you have enough physical exercise, extremely important to build up that resistance. Mental strengthening exercises, brain strengthening exercises, very, very important, because allergies are nothing but simply, even though we talk about it in terms of your nose and your lungs, because that's what the physical symptom is, but there is a lot of activity in the brain as well. And so prior to the allergy symptoms, so you have to strengthen your brain responses. All right, so you have to brain strengthening your exercises. Sleep, you have to have a very good sleep. Okay, and then make sure that you have you build resistance at all levels. Okay, selfless service, of course, positive emotions. So all this, everything that I've told about in my book and everything that I discussed in the last 9 sessions, if you can start inculcating that one by one, okay, to bring it all together at the same time may be difficult, but please bring it on every time. So let's say you say, this week I'm going to start practicing what I eat. Next week, I'm going to start practicing what and where I eat. The third week, I'm going to practice what, where, and when I eat. And then slowly build up your practices. You are going to build resistance. And once you build resistance, you will not have allergies. You will not have mucus formations. You will not have any kind of issues. So think about just not allergies, but all the health issues that you have, and look back at your quality of life, and you can address that through these natural interventions, and it helps. And by the way, when I'm saying all this, it's not just me as an example. I have, a lot of people have benefited from it. So, and there is evidence-based studies to support that as well. So everything that I'm saying is coming out of all these interventions that people have done.
Right. So basically, to sum up, what you're saying is to try and bring about some sort of discipline in your life.
Absolutely.
So that it's mindful eating, a good amount of exercise, and also, good amount of rest.
Yes.
So to reduce everything. So I know sometimes it is hard because there are, exceptions. And when you fall off the wagon, you get back on top of it. And
right.
I see it more or less like it's like standing on a rolling log in the river. You fall off the log, but you then get up on it
and then
come back.
Yep.
Come back. So get up on the horse and come back. So it's okay to sometimes when you slip, it is okay.
Yep.
And that's why I'm telling myself there are many times when I'm going on vacation or something like that, it's hard to keep up that kind of a discipline. There are so many things to eat, and it's not mindful eating at that time.
Radhika, the way you put it, it's very nice, because what happens is, if you are following a regular pattern, if you have a good life practices on a day-to-day basis, then even if you fall off the rut, let's say one couple of days when you're traveling or when you're social visits, the body will not react to that unfavorably, because you already built a huge resistance, and so that resistance will come in time, will come to help when you are staying off. So and then you're not going to stay off that for a long time, because it's just circumstances that have led you to that place. You're going to come back. So once again, you're going to build your reserves. So if anything, try to build your reserves, so that reserves will help you if at all you stray off, or if at all you go off balance.
Yeah, no, the reason for my saying that is, many people start feeling guilty. Oh, I don't have the willpower to stay on this, or I don't have, I'm not good at this or anything. But I am talking from my personal experience of having, followed whatever you have advised.
Right.
And and I will be the first one to admit that I'm not always successful. There are times when I'm tempted to eat a bag of chips.
Oh, me too. Me too.
So so that way it is very hard, but when I do that, I'm mindful of that, and then the next day or the day of the next week, I'm more mindful of eating healthier.
The other thing is even when you're, let's say you're in a social gathering, and that you're eating not the right kind of food, but the thing is now, and you cannot escape from that, because it's part of that's what society calls it to do that. The thing is, there are practices that you can do right there. Okay, even with that food that is not good, you can still practice a few good tips. Number one is, you can try to avoid conversation when you're eating. Okay, so that you're chewing on that food. So my suggestion is, even if it's something that you don't like, if you're eating that food and if you feel guilty, just don't feel guilty. Don't bring any emotions. Instead, chew the food thoroughly for 25 to 30 minutes. Not 30 minutes, 25 to 30 counts. Okay, and then try to so you can adopt a lot of good living tips even while you are in that setting itself. So that can help you with all those situations, and that's what we do. I mean, we stray off on a number of times, but the thing is, in those circumstances, we try to bring in the best practices the best we can. Absolutely.
Yes. So one more question I have is, I came across some reports that stress of any kind can put you at risk for COVID. What's your opinion?
Well, I mean, it's just not COVID alone. I mean, it's stress of any kind can lead you or can make you susceptible to so many degenerative conditions, just not COVID. Infection is one thing. Inflammation is another thing. Degenerative conditions is another thing. Especially if you're 30 and above, if 40 and above, and you have severe degenerative conditions, it's all because of you have to look back and see what kind of life are you leading. Is it a stressful life? Because what happens is, it's so interesting, and now people have done amazing amount of work. Ayurveda and yoga talked about that, okay, and now we have evidence-based medicine to support that. Stress actually, all kinds of stresses. It's just not one kind. There are stresses of so many kinds, okay, and all the stresses over time, it's not just one encounter, it's several encounters on a regular basis happen to impinge on our network, neural network. It impinges on our heart, it impinges on our kidneys, it impinges on our muscle, it impinges on our spinal cord. I mean, it can create a lot of problems in so many different areas of the body and the brain. Okay, and the question is, different people react to stresses in different ways depending on their biology and their physiology. Some people will have spinal issues, some people will have heart issues, some people will have kidney issues, some people will have kidney stones, some people will have very early on they may develop thyroid conditions, some people will have weight issues. So and then if you have any health issues, then yes, it means that your system is sort of compromised. And if you have a compromised system, my friends, yes, you are inviting yourself to not just COVID, but to several other disasters, whether it is flu, whether it is bronchial issues, whether it is plague, whether it is H1N1, or whether it is thyroid issues. I mean, it's so, the list goes on and on. And we now know, everybody tells you, even your doctor will tell you, the first thing, the question they'll ask is, are you having a stress? So stress is not just for COVID, but stress is the global phenomenon that is affecting so many of our lifestyles. So again, we have to look back and see how can we alleviate all these things. And those 10 sessions that we had is a perfect ground for you to look back and see what you can do to bring down the stress levels, both at work as well as at home.
Right. One question again from Vijaya, and she says, is pranayama, is it okay to do it in the afternoon?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can do it in the afternoon. So in the afternoon, if you want to do pranayama, make sure that you leave a 2 to 3 hours of gap between the time that you had your lunch, because you don't want to do pranayama on a heavy stomach or on a stomach where you've already brought in the food. So best thing is keep a 2-hour gap when you know that you've digested your food, and then you can do pranayama. And again, as I said, you don't have to indulge in, there are so many different kinds of pranayama practices. You have Kapalbhati, you have Bhastrika, you have Anulom Vilom, you have Shitari Pranayama, you have Brahmari Pranayama. Some of these are very, very, those are really hard practices that you gain a control over it only after you've had a seasoned pranayama practices. So for people who are very new, I would suggest Anulom Vilom, alternate nostril, which is very, very simple. Okay, you breathe in through one nostril, breathe out through the other nostril, and then breathe in through the second nostril, breathe out through the right nostril. So you're just alternating it. Usually we say one round is where you complete one entire round of left, right, right, left. And that way you do for 3 rounds. And my friends, alternate nostril is the best. You can do it after lunch, after giving a gap. You can do it after dinner, before going to bed. You can do it in the morning after you wake up. Extremely good. When I wake up, the first thing I do is I just do a quick 3 rounds of alternate nostril. That really helps in my day-to-day job.
Yeah. So any other questions anybody has before we think about winding up? Okay. So it looks like, we have our sessions every first, so October, every first Sunday. So October, November, and December, we have it. If you have any topics or anything that you would like us to, feature on this Good Living Practices sessions, please feel free to send us an email. And again, I'm appealing to you because North Bay Hindu Center is a non-profit, and we are focused on bringing these kind of panel discussions as well as building a Hindu temple in the North Bay. So your support, we count on your support. And so if you would like to donate, please go to northbaytemple.org and please sign up as a recurring donor or do a donation. It is purely voluntary. Anybody is welcome to these sessions. So please spread the word so that others can also benefit from Ram's wisdom and advice. So all these sessions are being recorded and they will be up on YouTube. And so if you have missed any of the sessions, you can go back and catch up on those sessions or listen to them once again. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming today and joining us in these sessions. We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks, on the first Sunday in October. Thank you.
Thank you, Radhika. Thank you, everybody.